go for launch.
5.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
4.
My friend, we cannot keep this a secret any longer.
This whole thing is insane.
3.
Quiet, please. I am analyzing.
Where's the kaboom?
2.
There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
1.
Tomorrow, in a world gone mad. The only law will be a renegade squad of suicidal cops.
He's my prisoner, and he's not walking out that door.
And the open road will be controlled by gangs of glory roaders. Max is a cop, one of the best.
Where does they're out to get you? Scoot jockeys? Yeah, nomad trash. Well, I'll add it to my thread collection.
You made the news again.
Charges relating to the slaying of a main force patrol officer.
Who was he?
In a road blockade accident last month.
Just another glory roader, I guess.
Toe Cutter is a glory roader, one of the most sadistic.
Anything I say, anything you say, what a wonderful philosophy you have. Take him away.
I want my baby.
You've not got a sense of humor.
Please, don't hurt my baby.
You've got a pretty face, though.
Both want the other dead. But only one can have his way. Mad Max. You don't want to make Max mad. Because when Max gets mad, he gets even. American International presents Mad Max, the maximum force of the future.
Greetings from the Humongous, the Lord Humongous, the warrior of the wasteland, the Ayatollah of rock and roller.
Greetings, my fellow galactic travelers, and welcome back to Planet 8. This is your Mission Commander Larry speaking to you from our hidden base. Chief Engineer Bob is here by my side as always in the command center, and circling Planet 8 in our orbital spy satellite is Reconnaissance Officer Karen.
And on this episode of Planet 8, we're going to be driving through an apocalyptic future film franchise known as Mad Max. Straight away, we're going to kick it over to Chief Engineer Bob. Bob, why don't you tell us a little something about Mad Max?
Mad Max. Well, there was a total of 4 movies, but I really think the most important one in the history of cinema had to be the original Mad Max, which was made in 1979 in Australia, made down under by George Miller and Byron Kennedy. And they basically originally, now I know Karen kind of knows the story a little better than I do, but originally they were like wanting to do a movie about like an ambulance chaser or a reporter that was reporting on a lot of these gruesome accidents that happen. And then they decided, well, we'll make him a cop just to kind of take that edge off a little bit. But basically they went out, begged, borrowed, stolen. Anyway, like about $350,000. And I think by the time the movie was made, it might have hit about $400,000 budget. And this is like minuscule in 1979. I mean, I think Star Wars in 77 was made for, what was it, about 10 million?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And this was made for like 1/20th of that. So that's pretty amazing.
It's shoestring.
Oh, definitely. And they just got really lucky that they went to a stage play and discovered Mel Gibson out of nowhere. Yeah, it was just a lot of amazing strokes of luck, and they were able to get a lot of people to work on shoestring budgets or shoestring salaries to make this film. In fact, they needed a motorcycle gang, and they just like found one in like Sydney and had them drive themselves down to Melbourne or somewhere and just use their motorcycles for the movie. Guerrilla filmmaking at its finest. I mean, say what you will about the other movies. I mean, the other movies had higher budgets when Warner Brothers took over, but this was definitely an independent Australian movie, and they caught lightning in a bottle. In fact, American International Pictures brought it over to the U.S. and actually dubbed the movie.
Oh, it was so terrible.
With really bad voices. So if you, I have the Mad Max, all 4 movies in like a Blu-ray set. And I think Fury Road's in 4K. But yeah, if you get that set, you get the original Mad Max in, with the Australian, not that it's like a foreign language, but in the Australian dialect anyway. The original audio. So that's the way to go, definitely. Because I saw a special where they were showing clips of it with the dub, and wow.
It's terrible. The first time I saw Mad Max was with that dub, because that was the tape that, you could get from Blockbuster or wherever, you'd go to rent it. And they had the worst caricature of like particularly sort of Southern voices. And, it was just horrible. And the thing is, then when, you finally hear the original Australian, it's like, they're not that hard to understand. So why they put in these really hokey voices, and the guy doing Max, so some of the other characters sound kind of, they're kind of doing Southern voices. And then the Max guy is doing like this, I don't know, King of the Mounted Police or whatever. He's like, I'm a hero.
Dudley Do-Right.
Yeah, he's Dudley Do-Right, exactly. He's
come on, Mel.
Real, tough hero voice. It was so hard to sit through.
Well, I'm wondering, like, did they just not want people to know it was a foreign film? It was from Australia, or because the original, I watched it, the other night in the original Australian dialect, and it was fine, I thought. Right.
I think from what I had read at the time was that they honestly felt people would have too much trouble understanding the Australians. And again, this is like 79, so it's a slightly different time, and maybe people were not as familiar with the Australian accent.
I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people that were they thought it was hard to understand, like Monty Python, like the British accents. Mm-hmm. Luckily, that was never dubbed. But I don't know. I mean, the Australian really didn't seem that hard or that difficult. No. I think British would be worse, but
it may have been the target audience too that like AIP thought was going to go see this film.
Could be. I have more problem with Canadian dialects than Australian. It's about time. Excuse me, what?
Is that righty?
Some of those Southern accents are hard to understand.
Oh, no kidding.
That's true.
But no, I think, overall, though, real enjoyable film, a great action film, probably one of the best. Yes, there's some now where they're way more spectacular or whatever. But if you think about Mad Max and the fact that 1979, if they wanted to roll a car and have it burst into flames, they really had to roll a car and have it burst into flames. It was all practical effects, all had to be done with stunt people, stunt drivers, stunt cars, and pyrotechnics and the works. So, that kind of thing. I always admire movies that do things practically and they have to actually come up with ways of doing things without the actual driver bursting into flames or anyone getting hurt or killed, during these things.
There were some scenes, especially like people flipping over or off of motorcycles, and they're really flipping. They're really, they're people. They're not dummies. And I'm just like, God, they're going to walk funny the rest of their life. It was impressive, but they took a beating.
That was what was so shocking, but also so exciting about Mad Max, and even about, Road Warriors. Like Bob said, it's practical effects. So there's stuff that they, even left in that wasn't planned, like when at one point Max drives through a bunch of the bikers on a bridge, and one of the motorcyclists, he falls off his bike, and then this other motorcycle hits him in the helmet. It's like, you can tell that's real. That's not a dummy. That's not anything that's been, faked in any way. And then you read stuff about it, and it's like, oh yeah, we had some, things happen that weren't planned. It's like, well, no, duh, right? These guys really, took a beating in some of these situations.
And to kind of put the film in perspective, if you think 1979, okay, before 1979, you had car stunts in movies. Maybe a car would drive off a cliff, and burst into flames, or, tumble down a hill or something. But that many car stunts in one movie? I mean, now you've got like Fast and the Furious, which I think owes their entire franchise to Mad Max.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
But again, Fast and Furious, well, we'll just CG a flame over here, and we'll just, add a computer explosion over there. And, but yeah, Mad Max, like I say, that many car stunts in one movie without anybody getting killed or hurt was just amazing.
Right. I mean, I'm thinking like Bullet, Steve McQueen. That was a great, you have a great car chase scene, or the Bond films. I mean, there was always these great, chase scenes, but nothing like we saw in Mad Max. And it's funny because, Jasmine luckily had never seen this movie. We're watching it, and what caught her attention is, oh, that's a young, handsome Mel Gibson.
Yeah, well, he was 22, 23, I think, when he made the movie.
He was in his early 20s. And it's always fun to watch the movie through someone's eyes when they haven't seen the film before. And she got everything. I mean, all the, the chases and the baby and the, the shoe on the road and, Goose in the, hospital. And so it was a lot of fun watching this movie.
And she understood all the Australian accents?
She's a big fan of Crocodile Dundee, so she had no problem whatsoever. No.
Well, that was another amazing stunt too, where Goose, basically takes a flying leap on his motorcycle and falls off and tumbles through the weeds.
Yeah, and that baby in the beginning was the Knight Rider.
Oh yeah,
Knight Rider.
And just the way he made you feel uncomfortable, the way he was just so crazy and yelling, and that kid in the street and the cars driving by, and that kid in the middle of the cars, and it was very exciting. And there's just this style to the overall film that really captured my attention. I hadn't seen the movie for 20 years. I mean, 15 at least. But it was just very well made, and it was gritty. It wasn't like this refined process.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think because they threw money at Mad Max, the second Mad Max movie, The Road Warrior. They threw money at that, and that just had more of a Hollywood feel to it. I can't really describe it better than that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at Mad Max, I mean, everyone thinks of Mad Max as like post-apocalyptic and all, but in the first movie, it just takes place a few years from now, and people are still running ice cream shops, and mechanics are still out there, and cops are still patrolling, and it's like, it just seems like you're in the outback. You're not in an apocalypse. Whereas once they got the budget, then they had more of an apocalyptic world. But
yeah,
right.
I know like Bob said initially, the idea had changed, as they went along and the things they wanted to do. And Miller had said that they didn't have a deep backstory for Mad Max other than they were influenced by the oil crisis that occurred in the 70s, and the things he had seen during the oil crisis where people would actually, get into fist fights at the gas pump and stuff like that. And so they did have this illusion in the film that there was an oil shortage, a gas shortage. But yeah, we didn't have this full blown, apocalypse or dystopian future in the first film. But then that morphs as we go along, right? So by the time we get to the next film, we're in a full blown dystopian future. Society's collapsed. They have the prologue, which basically says, two mighty powers went to war. Now, there's a really good YouTube channel called Mad Max Bible. This guy has like 5 or 6 videos, and he looks at like scripts and interviews and things like that with the folks who made the films. And so by Road Warrior, they had come up with a backstory. They brought on a guy named Terry Hayes to help them write the films. And so at that point they decided, Saudi Arabia and Iran went to war. And when they went to war, it resulted in all the oil, getting burnt up. And so that's when things really started going to hell. But there still wasn't like a nuclear confrontation. But somehow when we get to Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome and you get those freaking kids, then we've got the nuclear apocalypse, right? So that happened at some point, maybe after Road Warrior. I don't know. Somewhere in there, somebody dropped a bomb or many bombs, and we've got an apocalypse. And then, I don't know, Fury Road, I just throw in the towel. I don't know if it's an alternate universe version of Mad Max or what, but it seems like we have not only nuclear apocalypse, but complete loss of resources and everything. So I don't know, gentlemen. It's hard to put the continuity together with everything.
By that time, anything goes.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. Granted, not to that extreme as in the Mad Max films, but within the last 3 years, we've lived through a global pandemic, the largest volcanic eruption, along with earthquakes and fires in California, and ice storms in the east, and now the potential for World War III, and this whole Ukrainian thing happened like that out of the blue. So, can I believe that we went through, in this Mad Max, the Hall of Justice where the J's falling off and the signs all jacked up, and their version of the Highway Patrol has 3 or 4, and 2 of those officers are good and the other 2 are me. In the beginning of the second movie, The Road Warrior, they kind of say, well, the government's fought and the people did this and, whatnot. So, hey, in another year or 2, could we be following cars that crash and pulling gas out of their tank? And then could there be a World War III? And I hope not. At
this point, anything goes, really, right?
Well, see, if that is our future, that's exactly why you don't want to be driving around in a Prius right now. I got my truck. I'm ready. But
I got my Mustang. I'm ready to go. Yeah. Ever since I saw that Interceptor, oh, man, I love that car. That V8 Interceptor is so beautiful.
See, Karen's got the Interceptor. I've got the truck. Larry?
Bob, what happened to the Dragon Mobile?
I had to turn in to pay for the truck.
Look, gas prices, again, I don't want to get into reality too much, but gas prices being what they are now, I'm driving my little pickup truck more than anything because it's a 4-cylinder stick.
I don't blame you.
You get so many miles to the gallon.
I might be out there siphoning gas soon. You never know.
I told Jazz it's going to be like Gilligan's Island. We'll be riding bikes and, powering up.
Tell her to work on her coconut recipes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I didn't get around to Fury Road this time, but yeah, that kind of like, I don't know, was it like 20 years from when we saw the original Mad Max in continuity? I mean, I know it's a made up universe, it's a movie and stuff, but
well, it doesn't make a lot of sense because Tom
nobody
Hardy
knows.
would be too young to be the same Max.
Yeah.
If it was. But
how did things get that bad with the water?
Well,
global
Larry,
warming.
Let's move on to Road Warrior, and then we can.
Well, let me just say I downloaded this list here because I think one of the funnest things about these movies is actually the character names.
Oh.
And I think, they were probably watching Speed Racer a little bit with like Skullduggery and AC Doocy and Cruncher Block and Snake Oiler and these guys. But this has a list of a bunch of the characters from the movies. And some of these names, if you just watch the movies, you'll kind of miss, you'll miss the names, you'll miss the character. But they had Fifi, they had Bubba Zanetti, Papagallo, Scuttle, Sprog, Slit, Mr. Scratch, Johnny the Boy, Cheeto the Fragile, Slake McThirst, that's right out of Speed Racer. The Knight Rider, of course, the Collector, the Toady, the Splendid, how you do this? Argorod, Splendid Argorod, Curmudgeon, Clunk, Grinner, Big Rebecca, Iron Bar Basie, Miss Giddy, Diabondo, the People Eater, the Dog Blackfinger, Wes, Jim Goose, Imperator Ferocia, Killer of the Seeds. Now what that means, I have no idea. Tun Tattoo, Grease Rat. I'll skip some of these. Mud Guts. We had Bear Claw Mohawk, Screw Loose, of course, Pig Killer, Dr. Dealgood. This is one of my favorites. I don't remember which movie it was from. Coma Doof Warrior.
Was that the guitar player?
Coma Doof Warrior, maybe.
From Fury Road?
It's just the fact that they can work doof in there. Toe Cutter, Feral Kid, Master Blaster, Rictus Erectus, and of course, who could forget Lord Humongous?
I'm the Lord Humongous.
Lord Humongous.
Well, I think you forgot one of the most important, Sprog, Max's
son, Sprog.
Sprog. Didn't I do Sprog? Anyway, I skipped a couple that were that weren't quite as crazy, but.
Before we jump over to the Road Warrior, I thought it was interesting with the ambulance idea. Initially, Miller was he a medical student or did he actually?
Oh, he was a doctor. He worked in the ER.
There you go.
He had to experience all these aftermaths of massive crashes and things.
Isn't that funny? It's like, well, I'm a doctor, but you know what? I think I'd rather make movies. So, which member was it? Graham Chapman of Monty Python, who was also a doctor.
He was a physician.
Yeah. So, sometimes they just go, man, this is not what I want to do.
I mean, Monty Python, they were all highly educated.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting too. I read somewhere he was a fan of like Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd, and wanted to kind of, incorporate that kind of filmmaking and. Some of those stunts kind of takes me back to that idea.
Well, he said he also was impressed and a fan of Alfred Hitchcock, and that Hitchcock had said that he wanted to make movies where the fans and the theater goers in Japan didn't have to read the subtitles to understand what was going on. And Miller really embraced that idea. But of course, I mean, they're operating in somewhat different genres, but still that you can tell, I mean, his films, you can.
Well, I thought you were going to say that Hitchcock wanted to make movies with a bunch of car crashes.
Yeah, he never got to do his big car crash movies.
I was kind of thinking back, we were talking about what was there before Mad Max. And I think the only thing that would come close would be like Death Race 2000. It's more comical, obviously, and the cars all had fangs and horns and whatever. But, I mean, there were a lot of car stunts and crashes and things in there.
That's true. One last thing before we move on. We kind of talked about this beforehand, is that they had a budget of like $400,000 to make the movie, and they made like $1 gazillion at the box office. They held like the world record, Guinness Book of World Record, for a number of years. And Karen was saying, whatchamacallit, beat them out.
Blair Witch Project.
Blair Witch
Project.
It
took a while. Yeah, they held that record for quite some time. And I don't remember how much. Did they make like 100 million or something like that?
Something like that. And really, if you look at it, which movie would you rather? If someone's going to sit you down tomorrow and watch a movie, and you got to pick between Mad Max and the Blair Witch Project, what are you going to pick?
There is no choice.
Death Race 2000.
Now I will say,
Frankenstein.
I like Mad Max. It drags in the middle. The beginning of the film is perfect, where you have the chase, where they chase the Knight Rider, and the way they set up Max, where he just plays that game of chicken with him and everything is like perfect. And the end is also perfect, where he goes on his vengeance and cuts down all those guys. But the middle is kind of soft. It's a little, I found my attention wandering in the middle. So I can't give it, it's not like a perfect film to me, but it's a very good film.
Well, it's kind of funny too, because in the first movie, your hero Max is wearing like a light blue button-down shirt and some khakis, and then as things develop, he gets into the leather and that. But yeah, he's definitely his appearance, let's say, changes movie to movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, as the world gets further and further into chaos and apocalypse, and there's less and less of whatever it is that we consider humanity.
And I don't know that I would even call him a hero in the remaining movies. Maybe at best an anti-hero, because he's still so motivated just on mostly his own survival.
Yeah, he's very selfish. That's true.
Well, but it's sort of like, you have to be, right? It's every man for himself. I guess the thing that separates him from, say, the Marauders in Road Warrior is he's not going out of his way to, like, rape and murder people. He's trying to stay alive and trying to, salvage stuff. He still, one of the things, I guess we're kind of jumping ahead, but like he will honor his word. Like when he makes a deal with Papagayo and to go out and get the rig and bring it back and everything. Like he still has vestiges of civilization, whereas the rest of those guys, Humongous's crew, they don't have any honor or ability to function.
But see, that's the thing too, though. It's like Max will help people, but it's usually to get something.
Right.
Like, I'll go and get you a big truck, but I need my car back and I need all the gas I can carry.
Well, but he could have helped Humongous and those guys. He chose to help the other.
That's true.
It's kind of like a Frank Castle, kind of almost like a Punisher mentality. I mean, maybe because it's the Humongous, folks that did what, his kid and his wife in the first film were the bandits like that. Yes, let us move on to The Road Warrior, the second film in the Mad Max franchise. That one came out in what, 81?
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and like I said before, it's like Warner Brothers took over, gave them a big budget, gave it wide distribution, and even with all that, did it even do as well as Mad Max?
Well, that's a
okay.
good question. I don't know what they spent on it.
No, it did. I think it did pretty well. It's funny, though. I don't feel it's that Hollywood. To me, I felt like when we get to the next movie, it feels real Hollywood to me. This one still feels more of a...
Australian.
Yeah, it feels more genuine. I mean, it just feels like they're still staying true to whatever their vision was.
But it also has one of the best car action sequences, like just to open the movie.
Oh yeah, it's still just fantastic as far as the action sequences.
Yeah, I agree. I was just reading here. Apparently, it was not the number one grossing film in Australia. That went to Gallipoli.
Gallipoli?
Oh, Gallipoli.
Gallipoli?
It's a World War I film. And I think, Mel Gibson was in that as well.
So it wasn't Crocodile Dundee then?
Let's see. Well, Wiki says that... What does it say, box office? 36 million? I'm surprised. I would think it would be more than that.
See, now you're saying Mad Max made like 100 million, so...
Well, let me go check Mad Max.
I don't know if any of the others beat Mad Max. Maybe Fury Road, just because of inflation and all that. But
I mean, you're going with the U.S. box office, not the global box office, so there's a distinction.
This is true. Global is probably kicks it up pretty high.
Yeah.
In any case, yes, so Mad Max 2. This was probably my favorite movie for many years. Growing up in Central Coast, California, there was nothing to do pre-internet except drive around. And
wreck cars? Cool.
We used to drive around. We used to race.
We had these feral kids with boomerangs that would pop up and tassel roll. We had to be careful.
They used to jump out of the side of the road and throw boomerangs at us. No, but, it's just, I don't know for you guys how strong that car culture was, because even though you're California, you're like in the big city. So.
Well, I mean, you're talking to a guy who grew up in the 70s, and we had the muscle cars, and we used to cruise up and down the main strip here in El Camino, and people would park on the side of the road and pop their hoods open so everyone could check out their engines. And that was every Friday night you'd be cruising up and down the L.
So it was a really appealing film in the sense of like just seeing people racing around, driving around really fast and stuff. And I saw this way before I saw Mad Max. I think I didn't see Mad Max. I sought out Mad Max after I saw this. It probably took another couple of years, before the video store had it.
Well, that's the thing. That was like the very early origins of video stores too. So it's like if you missed a movie in the theater and it doesn't like play on TV, you're not going to see it, unless you go to like a rep house or somewhere some theater that's showing older movies. But so I mean, 81 is still pretty early. 81 was it 81, 82?
81,
81.
Yeah.
But this was like mind blowing in the theater, because I think we just got like the THX sound in the theater and everything. And it was like, holy crap. I went and saw it a bunch of times, and it was just an amazing film.
And I think when they made the film, they were basically approaching it from like Mad Max not existing. So like this thing could like stand on its own. They use clips from Mad Max during the prologue. And, when they're talking about the apocalypse and stuff, and they'll they'll show scenes from Mad Max, but they don't make a lot of connections to it. It's kind of like, here's a standalone movie and here we go. And that could have been Warner Brothers, telling them to do that.
I heard that they did that because they said not enough people in the U.S. had seen the first one. So they...
Walker being one of them.
Yeah, so they
Case
said...
in point.
That's why they called it Road Warrior here instead of Mad Max 2. Everywhere else in the world, it was Mad Max 2. But not enough people in the U.S. saw it. So they didn't want to tie it too closely to that film because nobody knew what Mad Max was. So,
and I should have said this before, but I was thinking on Twitter, I think someone commented on one of your posts that they were actually there when they filmed Mad Max.
Yeah. So,
and I was like,
really?
How cool is that?
And how come we're not having them on the show right now?
So because I'm an idiot. I don't know. Sean Brady. So Sean is a very cool cat. Been a friend of his on Twitter and Facebook for a few years. And yeah, he is one of our friends from Down Under. I know he follows the show. So hi, Sean. And yeah, I was so impressed with that he, as a kid, he grew up around where they were filming and he got to see them, filming some scenes like he mentioned in Mad Max when Max is going to take off after the Knight Rider. That scene where he pulls out and goes down the road, Sean got to see that being filmed. And so, yeah, can only imagine how cool that would be to see it being filmed and then go see the movie. And even now, watch the movie and think about, oh, yeah, I saw that.
I was there. He had made mention that Mel Gibson looked real intimidating, so he didn't go up and ask for an autograph or anything like that. I would have been in the same frame of mind.
But yeah, that was really, really cool. I can only imagine something like that. I've never seen. Oh, the closest I think I ever came to seeing a movie film. Remember when they were filming the Matrix sequels out in Alameda? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Up on the freeway.
I
remember when I was in 8th grade, there was this mansion across the street from our school, and they were shooting Streets of San Francisco over there.
Oh.
A Martin Quinn production.
Yeah, and Ken Martin and I snuck out of class to go watch them shoot Streets of San Francisco. And Sister Teresa, with her battle scar, she caught us. Ooh. And we had a few days after school after that. But yeah, that, and then a few things here and there. But that was probably the earliest thing I remember watching being filmed.
Oh, that's cool.
Was that? No, it wasn't Carl Malden on that, was it?
Yeah, Carl Malden and Michael Douglas.
Yeah, Carl Malden.
Douglas, yeah.
Michael Douglas, and then at one point in time, Richard Hatch.
Yeah, all my friends used to say that my dad looked like Carl Malden.
Ah.
Just because he had the big nose.
But anywho, yeah, but I don't have a I mean, if so I watched Mad Max and then I watched Road Warrior, and I got it. I could see where Max became the Road Warrior. I mean, he still had the Interceptor, the nice engine block. What really you're not really going to cry in these movies, but I did get a little bit clamped when they killed his dog, man. Yeah. You don't kill people's dogs in TV shows.
You can kill babies in movies all day long, but as soon as the dog gets hit, man, that's it.
It's like
they're really bad people,
They are.
Just ask John Wick.
Oh man, that's a whole nother.
But yeah, so we get to Road Warrior and things are really falling apart. Max is a complete loner, and except for his dog, he's got his dog.
Right.
And he's being the first scenes we see is he's being attacked by these marauders,
Right.
And yeah, another great action sequence, right, to start off the film.
And these Marauders, I mean, they were like, you know, there were wrestlers that took some of the looks from those Marauders, like the Road Warriors and the WCW and stuff. But they had, you know, mohawks and, you know, chains on pieces of their face. And, you know, it was just a really steampunk kind of dystopian. Mm-hmm. I mean, oh, man. Very exciting stuff, though. You know, just straight away, it opens up with Max, like, you know, running out of fuel, you know, running the big engine and, you know, trying to almost play road chess with these Marauders.
Well, I loved how he got them to basically shoot each other. You know, they're coming up on either side of him, and he puts on the brakes and wham, shoot each other.
Good stuff.
Yeah, but then he goes and tries to steal gas out of a one-man helicopter.
Well, yeah, and that actor, I can't think of his name.
It's Bruce Spence.
Yeah,
Bruce Spence,
and he comes in and surprises him out of nowhere. But then they kind of become reluctant allies for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he didn't trust him. He got the better of Max, and he was, you know, kind of like, ha, 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 ha. But then Max gets the better of him. And there's this one scene where Max is eating a can of dog food. That's his dinner. And, you know, he gets a little more than halfway through, throws the can to the dog, and here's the gyrocopter guy trying to get a little piece of the dog's like,
but
morning, he puts his finger in the can and pulling out like dog spit mixed with dog food. I'm just like, oh.
What I love about that scene is when Max is eating the food, the gyro captain and the dog are both asleep, and then they both wake up and look at him while he's eating, and the gyro captain pulls open, he has this like ridiculously long jacket. He pulls open the jacket and he pulls out a wooden spoon. Yeah, like, why is he carrying around this big wooden spoon?
Always be prepared.
But he's like a gentleman. He's still civilized in some regard, right? So instead of using his hands or whatever, he's got his spoon that he's going to eat with. And I think in some ways, the relationship between the two of them, he sort of has this effect on Max to kind of bring him back to civilization on some level. You know, Max doesn't trust anybody. He doesn't want to be around anybody. But the gyro captain is still like when he gets in that group of survivors, you know, he's smiling and talking to all of them. He's, you know, glad handing everybody and working. Max is just like off to the side, like a, you know, wild dog or whatever. He doesn't want to have anything to do with them. And I think the gyro captain has this effect on Max because he keeps trying with Max. You know, he keeps trying to talk to him. He keeps trying to, like, get to him.
Well, and there's this scene where, you know, Max brings in one of the victims from the Marauders, you know, the folks at the refinery were trying to get that rig. And he tells him, look, I can take you back where, you know, but you're going to compensate me enough fuel, you know, from my car. And the guy's like, yes, we have plenty of fuel. And, you know, the poor woman is sprawled out there half naked. I mean, God knows what they did to her. And he leaves her and picks up the guy and takes him in there. And they're very, you know, suspicious of Max. And, you know, they finally get him into the compound. And, you know, one of the ladies calls him out. He's not a good guy. He did this because he wanted gas. He didn't know whatever the guy's name was. And, you know, they ask, where's the girl? Oh, I left her. You know, she's out there with them. Did you see two other guys? No, didn't see anybody else. Just him. Can I have my fuel now? And it's like, wow. You know, if it wasn't for the fact that the Marauders started attacking again, and then Max is sitting there, right, and he hears they're looking for the rig, and he finally speaks up and he says, hey, I can get the rig. I saw, you know, 2 or 3 days ago. Just give me all the fuel I can carry and diesel and high octane. So they reluctantly make this bargain with him to get the rig, and mayhem ensues.
Fun and frivolity.
Yeah.
Well, and then you also have the feral kid, who is like yet another figure who sort of starts to have an effect on Max, you know. And he doesn't want to have anything to do with him, right? He's just like, go away, kid, you know. But
well, I think part of it, and they didn't really spell this out, but attachment brings loss, and loss brings pain. Mm-hmm. And I think Max was just trying to, you know, I don't need that. It hurts too much, or, you know, whatever. It's like, I think he still had a form of post-traumatic stress, losing his wife and kid, you know. And again, that wasn't spelled out. This is me, you know, interpreting whatever. But that kid was... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I think you're right, because I don't think back then they felt the need in films to, like, hit you over the head with stuff like that.
Right.
You know, you just understood that, you know, he's a loner because he lost his family, and that's it. And you didn't have to psychoanalyze anybody.
You just, right. That kid, though, was great. I mean, and then one of the doofuses in the marauding group goes to try and kid has this boomerang that is like a knife boomerang, and the kid has this huge leather glove, you know. And when we say kid, what was he, like all of 7 years old or something? He's
pretty tiny kid.
Yeah, and he had this like huge like mane of hair. And then one of the marauders goes to catch it, and off comes his fingers. You know?
I feel bad that I laugh every time I see that scene.
I know.
It's like, it's horrible, but it's like he's such a moron. And then, of course, it winds up killing the I don't know, lover, partner, whatever of Wes, who goes absolutely ballistic, and then winds up, you know, having to be corralled by the humongous.
Yeah. And humongous, I forgot, because I haven't seen this film for a while. Yeah. This dude's ripped. I'm like, jeez.
And that's all weightlifting, man. They didn't have a lot of steroids back then.
Oh, man. Maybe it was the nuclear waste or whatever. I don't know. But anyway. Yeah, that he right square in the guy's head.
Yeah.
And as a little kid, you know, when Max gives him that music, it's the guts of the music box, but you turn the thing and it still plays Happy Birthday, and the kid plays it backwards. It's like dunk 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 dunk, and he does that you know, like just so little meant so much to that kid. It was great. There was another great scene too, where, you know, Max is gonna either he's leaving or he's going to get the rig or whatever, and that kid packs up his little leather, you know, spare pair of shorts, and Max is like, get out of here, go on. The kid's just like, oh. But that kid ends up saving Max's life later on in the film. What happened? So Max says, I'll go get it. And the leader of the group's like, oh, he was going to do it, but he got bow and arrowed in the hip, so he couldn't drive, right? So he convinces the group to say, okay, yeah, let Max go.
No.
Because some of the group... go ahead.
Well, that happens later after Max brings the rig back. The guy gets shot.
Right,
so they give him the gas. They figure they've got his car, so he's got to come back for his car. So he's taking the gas and he's going out in the dark to go back to the rig. Now, I have never been able to see very clearly exactly what happens, but apparently he walks off like a ridge or something and falls. And he's right near the Marauders' camp. And so they hear the gas cans rattle, and one of them comes to investigate. I think it's the bear claw guy. And then the little feral kid starts howling like a wolf. Apparently he's been following Max. And so then the guy thinks it's wolves, or I don't know. Are there wolves out in the Australian desert? I don't know.
It's dystopian. Who knows?
It would have to be dingoes or something.
Now, dingo ate the baby.
There you go. Might have been a dingo.
So he throws a rock at him or whatever, and Max continues on the way with the gas to the rig. But yeah, it's kind of odd because it's so dark, it's hard to see. But he just seems to like take a step and fall down like this crevice or something.
I tell you, that kid, he's great.
But and it's interesting when I see this film, and then I saw Thunderdome. I'm not trying to jump ahead, but like there's so much stuff in this film that I liked, but then they take it and they try to amp it up to 11 in Thunderdome, and I don't like it. We have one little kid in this movie, and then we have like a gazillion little kids in the next movie, you know.
Well, one kid was good, then, a gazillion is even better.
Yeah.
But here's my question, because I had read that Byron Kennedy was like the idea guy.
Mm-hmm.
When did he pass away?
83.
So he was still there for Road Warrior.
Right.
But he wasn't there for Thunderdome, right? Thunderdome was 45?
85,
yeah. So, I mean, that could have been a big part of it. Here's the guy with all of the big ideas, and he's gone.
That's a very good point, Bob. I hadn't thought of that, but you make a good point because, he was the one who originally, ever since he was a kid, wanted to make a movie. What was it called? Police Chase or Car Chase or something? That was his big thing he wanted to do. And of course they did Mad Max, and, he had all these other ideas that he wanted to do. And I don't know, but I do feel, I know I told you guys, I feel like Miller's been making the same movie over and over, just more excessive each time.
Because, I was watching some special, and somebody was commenting on the fact that Miller was there all the time on the set. He was like overseeing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, not so much. He was kind of behind the scenes, and that's when they commented that he was more of the idea guy that came up with all the different ideas for the movies and that. So I think they definitely missed him once he was gone.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, you look at, a lot of famous pairings, Stanley and Jack Kirby, or Lennon and McCartney, or whoever you want to say, they complemented each other and probably held each other in check, so that their excesses didn't get out of control.
Well, there's that. And then when the studio's involved, it's a corporate mentality,
mm-hmm.
and they start screwing with things too. And, I don't know what happened with Thunderdome. They got Tina Turner supposed to be this, big to do, and
Well, Tina Turner was huge back then.
Yeah.
She had just kind of gotten out from under the oppressive thumb of Ike Turner.
Yeah.
And she was starting her solo career, and What's Love Got to Do with It, and she had big hits. And so then they grabbed her and put her in this movie.
Just the fact that they would think that they should put a R&B or soul singer or anybody famous like that in a Mad Max movie tells me that they lost their direction. They just lost it.
Or they just wanted a name person to draw people in. Was Mel Gibson a name actor by then?
I think by 85, hadn't he done some other stuff by then?
Perhaps, but I don't think he was like the household name that he was after that.
Yeah, that could be.
As far as being like a marquee draw.
I wasn't prepared to look up Mel Gibson, oddly enough. Of course, there was a reason they didn't bring him. There were a couple of reasons they didn't bring him back for Fury Road.
Well, the Road Warrior was what, 81?
81.
So, Yeah, and
well,
then,
he did. After that, he did Year of Living Dangerously, The Bounty, The River. So he did a couple of things.
Because he was kind of starting to get more famous at that point.
He was just starting to get more famous.
But as I was mentioning before we started recording, I thought the funny thing being Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. And Thunderdome is in the movie for maybe, 2-3 minutes. Long enough for a bungee fight. And then it was gone.
Well, I made a few comments on Twitter about my feelings about the film.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes, it did.
And
let's not hold back now.
I've never liked it because, again, it just went even more excessive. It took some of the things in Road Warrior that I liked, the Marauders and stuff, but then everybody in Bartertown looks like one of those marauders. You've got all these people with mohawks and the shoulder pads. It's like, why would they all look that way? That doesn't make any sense to me. And then, again, the stuff with the kids, somebody made a good point saying it almost feels like two movies. You have the Bartertown sequence where he comes in, he's trying to get his vehicle and possessions back. He has to fight the guy. Then he can't kill Blaster because of he realizes what's going on. And then they shoot him off into the wasteland. And then all the stuff with the kids, it's like a totally different movie and the tone changes. And I don't know. But it feels like a big Hollywood movie where they wanted to do something that would appeal to families. It's like, that's not what a Mad Max film is,
And I think one problem too is when you're making a sequel, some people get obsessed with how do we top the last one?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's not good to top the last one. Maybe it's better to just make another good movie.
Right.
Well, I had read, Byron Kennedy, he was location scouting for Beyond Thunderdome when he crashed in was it a plane or a helicopter?
I think it was a helicopter. Yeah.
It's probably that gyrocopter, right?
I hope not.
Reusing everything. Yeah.
That's right.
So then Miller was co-director. He didn't direct Thunderdome. Who's the other guy? George Ogilvy?
Ogilvy?
Ogilvy? Maybe. Anyway, he makes mention he just lost his friend. His heart just really wasn't in it. What happened to the script and the story? I don't know.
Well, studio and new creative team and what have you. Maybe they kind of lost vision a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. And the score, oh my God. Now, I know Maurice Jarre, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, is a well-known composer, and he did Lawrence of Arabia and a bunch of other big Hollywood movies, but that score was totally not what Brian May, who was not a member of Queen, not that Brian May, the first two films, the scores, especially that score for Road Warrior, those were fantastic. Those were great. Really, the second one was a really, really great score. And then you go to the third one, and the score is just so wishy-washy and soft, and it's just so terrible. I don't know. It really stood out to me how what they lost switching composers. But it's the whole thing of the movie, right? They just went so Hollywood with it. It just watered down the concept so
Well, that was kind of like one of my complaints about movies in the 80s, TV shows especially, is suddenly you had synthesizers and you didn't need an entire orchestra. You could do one guy in a studio with a synthesizer and make it sound, quote unquote, like an orchestra. And it really never did. But, sometimes they use them to good effect, Chariots of Fire or what have you, but sometimes not so much.
Mm-hmm.
Chariots of Fire, I can see that. I was thinking more like The Thing. It would just wah, 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 wah.
Well, you can even, you go all the way back to Forbidden Planet, And look at all, it was just like electronic noise was basically the soundtrack.
Right.
With theremins and what have you. But yeah, I don't know. Synthesizers just, I don't know, it almost makes a film or a TV show kind of seem cheap, basically.
This movie to me was more like about sound bites. Welcome to another episode of Thunderdome! And you're like, oh. Then you watch it and you're like, wah, wah. What happened? 2 go in, 1 comes out. 2 go in, 1 comes out.
But not really.
Okay. Yeah.
But
well,
not this
interestingly
time.
enough, I think it was Siskel and Ebert, it was Roger Ebert, had praised that fight scene like, oh my God, not since Karate Kid have I seen such a great fight. I'm like, did we watch the same movie? I mean,
oh my God.
That was before Jackie Chan came over here and became big.
But that movie pretty much put the nail in the coffin of Mad Max franchise for decades.
See, a thought comes into the head and then it goes out of the head and then you scramble
2
around
thoughts
trying
go
to get
in
the
and
thought.
1 comes out.
1 goes out, none come out. And 1 goes in, 1 come out.
I will say I was very disturbed to read that Miller may have stolen an idea from this writer that he talked to. There was this guy named Russell Hoban who wrote a novel called Ridley Walker. No relation. And it was a science fiction novel, and it featured these kids in a dystopian future who spoke in this strange language. That might sound a little familiar. And apparently George Miller had a meeting with this writer and talked to him about his ideas. And then they didn't talk again, and the guy thought nothing of it. And then, I don't know, a year or 2 later, he's seeing this movie come out, and lo and behold, there's this group of abandoned kids who all speak this strange dialect in it. And it seems like it just seems like Miller pretty much took that idea from the guy's book and didn't credit him or give him any.
This is why Grogu does not talk in The Mandalorian. They didn't want to have any of these complications. Were you in the Jedi Temple? From the time before. Anywho, wasn't there a rumor that Furiosa was the next film planned in the franchise?
They had been talking about it for a while, and they were.
And then the pandemic hit. Well,
so actually, Miller wanted to make a Mad Max TV show in the late 80s, early 90s, along the lines of like the Xena franchise. And he even had a guy picked out to play Max, and then that guy got in an accident, a very serious accident. And they kind of shelved it. And then they started putting together the Fury Road idea, and they were looking to film with Gibson in the early 2000s, but the funding dropped out because they were going to film in Africa, and then all sorts of stuff was going on. And then they were going to try again a few years later, but that's when Mel Gibson, all the shit went down with him and his career, as I'm sure people are well aware of all of his various issues.
Let's just say idiosyncrasies.
We can leave it at that. And then I guess he kind of left it alone for a while, and then they finally picked it up again, but realized they couldn't use Gibson. And then actually for a while they were thinking about Heath Ledger, and they talked to Heath Ledger, and then we all know what happened to Heath Ledger. So they wound up with Tom Hardy. And from what I understand, most of the script really didn't change that much from what they intended for Mel Gibson. I mean, it was supposed to be a much older Max on sort of his final adventure. And supposedly the script did not really changed that much when they decided to, go with Tom Hardy, and then a few years went under the bridge, or however you want to look at it.
Well, I mean, comparatively speaking, there wasn't a lot of dialogue in the movie. And as I was mentioning before the podcast, I even messaged you guys while I was watching the movie saying, I'm about halfway through this film and I'm waiting for a plot to show up. And it never really did.
Well, I think that's what happens when you decide you want to make a movie out of the final chase sequence of The Road Warrior, which is what I heard was their motivation. They wanted to take that last chase sequence and just make a movie that was one long chase sequence.
I mean, you have to admit, all the car chases and crashes and everything's very impressive. There's this, such a very thin thread holding them all together that, overall the movie kind of falls apart. And yes, friend of the show, Lord Bloodraw, says just, sit back and enjoy the ride. Don't try to overthink it. But I don't know. I need a little more story in there.
He really likes the film, and he made a good point. It is reminiscent to him of Heavy Metal, the animated film. I can see that. I'm still trying to wrap my head around Bane played Mad Max. I was waiting for them to go, welcome to Fury Road.
Jean-Luc's clone.
Jean-Luc's clone. Oh.
Venom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what hurts more, him playing Venom or Jean-Luc's. Nope, Jean-Luc's clone. That hurts more. Okay.
Well, I know what hurts the most is Data's death in that film. So, I won't talk about it.
Yeah.
Well,
what a waste.
I know I have mentioned to you, fine gentlemen, that, I really don't care for Fury Road. And I know most people are like, what? It's such a great movie. The production design is so brilliant. And to me, it's just too excessive. It's too excessive. It's like Miller took all the stuff from Road Warrior that was kind of cool, the Marauders and their look, and then he just decided to, like I told you guys earlier, it's just like a cartoon. It's just like goofy and ridiculous to me. And plus there's just a lot of really kind of gross stuff going on in there. Like he's got those really gross women hooked up to milking machines and like some people with some serious physical handicaps and stuff.
That little dwarf guy who sits there looking through the telescope all day.
Yeah, and it's almost like, I don't know, it just seems sort of like a now I can't think of the word for it, but it's a voyeuristic. It just, I don't know. I found it disturbing. And there was nothing in that movie for me personally on an action level that I didn't feel like Road Warrior already gave me. So, and I think Mel Gibson is a zillion, even though I have to detach the actor from the character. I prefer Mel Gibson's Max to Tom Hardy's Max. Tom Hardy's Max was just kind of there. He didn't do anything for me. Mel Gibson's Max, he was cool. I mean, he was the kind of guy you believed could like drive down a road in a semi truck with one guy digging claws into his neck, another guy like shooting an arrow in his leg, and he'd just be like, F it, I'm doing it, So, yeah.
I hear you.
Well, Mel Gibson had more of the crazies in him. In his character and in real life. So he
I think that's
drew upon personal experience.
The Fury Road, like, they're so ham-fisted in showing Max's like mental state, his PTSD or whatever, all those scenes over and over and over again of the little girl screaming at him or people running at him and screaming at him. And it's like, we get it. The guy is suffering from, PTSD and who knows what else. But, like, I didn't even need to see that in Road Warrior to understand that he was that screwed up. I knew he was that screwed up. I get it, you know. I knew that he was messed up, and I didn't have to see all that kind of stuff.
Well, that was just sort of like you were saying earlier about not having to, like, hit you over the head with it.
Right.
It's been a while since I saw it. Who was the villain in this one? I know he had the mask thing. What was it? From a prior film?
It was...
No?
Well, the villain was called Immortan Joe, but the guy who played Toe Cutter in Mad Max played Immortan Joe.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Yeah.
And I guess one of the women that was escaping with Max was pregnant with his child.
Mm-hmm.
So he's totally obsessed with catching them.
Yeah.
Right. They were his property. Which, I don't know. I don't have a problem with that depiction necessarily, because I think in a dystopian world, women are going to suffer pretty badly. So I get it. It's not, I mean, we've seen that before in, like, Soylent Green. The women in that world were, you know, called furniture in the rich guy's apartment. So it's nothing new.
You know what the weird thing is, though? Both Soylent Green and Road Warrior took place in 2022.
Well, Road Warrior is earlier than 2022, though.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was supposed to be like 2022.
Well, looking at the timeline from the Mad Max Bible guy, it's supposed to be in the early 80s, because Mad Max is a few years from now, and that came out in 79. So, yeah, I think Mad Max 2 is still in the 80s, but I don't know. Who knows?
I love that we live in a world where there is a Mad Max Bible guy, not to be confused with the Planet of the Apes Bible people, that help us connect all of these fictional, which we love and live in worlds.
Hey, you know, if I could get a PhD in this shit, I would be so excited. That's the only thing I'd go back for my PhD in.
I have a good friend.
In making stuff up?
Exactly.
Good friend I see Tuesday nights at Forbidden Island, Chad, and he wishes that he could have a job as a rum ambassador and just travel the globe spreading the good joy of rum and sampling rums. And I'm like, that would be a great job. You know? So a PhD in all this science fiction and stuff would be a wonderful endeavor.
Yeah. If you could get paid for it.
Well, if you were studying for a PhD, you wouldn't have time to watch all this stuff, and then you wouldn't know what to write on.
I wouldn't have time for the podcast, and that would be sad.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, my friends, do we have anything else to say about Fury Road or Mad Max films or The Road Not Traveled?
No, I just think, if we have any advice at all to the listeners, is watch Mad Max and watch Road Warrior. And then after that, it's up to you.
And make sure you always have a full tank of gas, because you never know.
And don't drive a Prius.
Yeah.
Whatever car or truck you're driving now, that may be your post-apocalyptic vehicle. So keep that in mind, especially when you're out buying something new.
Boy, these days, you just don't know, You got to be prepared. So think about, what is your post-apocalyptic game plan?
Go get yourself a Hummer.
What are you going to drive? What are you going to wear? What's going to be your weapon of choice?
Jesus Christ, a Hummer. How about $500 to fill that tank?
Get to the Hummer.
Get 2 jobs.
What do you ever think about, like, when you're getting dressed in the morning, like if there was suddenly some kind of apocalypse, that's what you're going to be wearing in the out in the wasteland as you're trying to survive?
Shorts and kids. Oh
no. Shorts and Crocs.
We got to do another Road to the Apocalypse episode.
That would be
and
fun.
Discuss what we'd be wearing.
Yeah, what would be wearing besides
that's where the Dragon Mobile came from, right? So
that's true.
Where the Dragon Mobile came from. That's right. The Dragon Mobile, aka Bob's truck.
That's right. Well, see, my truck will eventually morph into. I'll have to like add stuff to it to make it the Dragon Mobile if it ends up in the post-apocalypse.
I don't know. When you run out of gas and I drive by in my Prius and give you a lift, I think you might change your mind.
Boy, you and Jasmine are going to have to be sitting on that bicycle like 18 hours a day to charge up that Prius.
Gilligan's Island. Well, no, the Prius is half gas, half electric. It's not a Tesla.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we can't plug it in.
But then the battery wears out, and where are you? You're out siphoning gas and stealing
gas
cars.
Engine and the kinetic energy from the wheels and the brakes, and it's all this other kind of stuff. But we do get about 550 miles to a tank, so
that's nice.
Not complaining. Yeah. The Tesla, I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to need that Gilligan's Island bicycle. Hey, look, I'm getting rid of the truck and the Prius and everything. I'm getting one of those gyrocopters. Screw that.
There you go. You'll have a tactical advantage over everybody.
There you go. I can sleep on rooftops at night and no one will come and bother me. But anyway, it is that time in the podcast where we share with you all the latest and the greatest of gadgets and stuff. But this podcast, we have a special Memoriam. Chief, go ahead and take it away, if you will.
Well, yeah, this has been a fun episode so far, so sorry to bring people down, but I just found out as of today, the day that we are recording this, and it's actually St. Paddy's Day, March 17th, but I'd heard that Akira Takarada had passed away. And for those who do not know about Mr. Takarada, he played Ogata in the original Godzilla 1954, and he's appeared in quite a few Toho and Godzilla films since, including like my favorite movie of all time, Godzilla vs. The Thing, also known as Mothra vs. Godzilla. He was in Monster Zero, Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, also known as Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster, and a few other films, all the way up to like Godzilla Final Wars. And he's been definitely like an ambassador, appearing at conventions and shows all over the world and talking about his career in not only Godzilla films, but in movies and TV. He's a singer. He's a dancer. In fact, recently I was watching a movie called The Big Boss. It's not the Bruce Lee movie, but it's a Japanese film called The Big Boss, where Akira Takarada plays a nightclub singer that gets mixed up with the mob. And he sings, he dances, he gets involved in the action. And it's just it's an amazing film if you can ever find it. But yeah, Akira Takarada, definitely a loss. I had met him at Monsterpalooza, which was a definite honor. And the two stories I tell from there. One was I have this Godzilla Chronicles book, big thick book that basically covers the Showa films. So whenever there's a Showa actor or someone who was on a crew or something at a show, I bring this big old book and have them sign it like a yearbook. So I brought it for Akira Takarada to sign, and he looked at it and he was just like sitting there just looking at all the signatures, and then he was like, thumbing through the pages trying to find all the pictures of him inside the book, and signed it. And I think he signed a couple of the other pictures that he really liked. And then the other thing was he had brought with him a Bullmark King Ghidorah figure, which this thing was made back in the 70s. And so he was selling it. So I said, okay, I'll buy it. So I bought a King Ghidorah Bullmark figure from Akira Takarada and had him sign the wing. So that's kind of one of my prized possessions.
Nice.
But yeah, no, he was great with the fans, great at the shows, great with interviews, very generous with his time, and will definitely be missed. He died of pneumonia in a hospital in Japan, 87. So he lived a fairly long life, and he was kind of considered one of the elders in amongst the Godzilla actors. There's a couple more left, but he had been in the first film and quite a few throughout, so he was kind of like the actor as far as that genre goes. So rest in peace, Akira Takarada. You will be greatly missed.
Yes, indeed. Rest in peace. Okay, guys, this was another fun episode.
Until that part, right? Until Bob brought it down.
Then it became very solemn.
Somber. Appreciate you guys listening. Take care of yourselves. Stay healthy. Until we meet again, this is Planet 8 signing off. Adios. Peace out.
On that note, this will conclude this transmission from Planet 8. We would like to thank all of our intergalactic audience for listening. Be sure to head on over to our website at www.planet8podcast.com, where you can get more information on this episode's topic.
For more conversation, find us on Twitter at Planet8Cast.
Or on Facebook at facebook.com/Planet8Podcast.
We want to thank you guys for tuning in each and every episode. We look forward to your input and opinions. Until next time, this is Planet 8 signing off. End transmission.
By George, he's got it. It is the end.
You want to get out of here? You talk to me.